So, the key question is, why did the Second Crusade fail? Our challenge is to understand the different factors at work and eventually to decide which factor was the most important. As we know, there were three main factors, and the first of these were the poor initial aims of the crusade itself. Now, Pope Eugenius and Bernard were clearly not military men. They were not military strategists, they were not military tacticians, they didn't have experience in planning campaigns, and this is very evident right from the outset of the Second Crusade. The aims of the crusade were clearly over-ambitious and idealistic. A clear goal was not established, either for recapturing Edessa or for defeating Nur ad-Din. Perhaps again they took success for granted. After all, the first crusade had been successful, so why not the second? They didn't factor in the new military and political realities of the Middle East. For instance, Masoud, the new Sultanate of Rum, was a strong military leader, and Nur ad-Din had also begun to unite northern Syria. Clearly, Bernard and Eugenius were not aware of this situation. In short, they allowed too many separate campaigns within Europe and to the Middle East. The result was they spread resources too thinly, and ultimately the army in the Middle East was simply not big enough to tackle Nur ad-Din. Secondly is the factor of poor leadership. It is clear throughout the crusade that both Louis and Conrad simply made too many mistakes. For instance, they travelled separately in Asia Minor or Anatolia, and this allowed them to be attacked and defeated by Masoud at Dor-Elam and at Mount Cadmus. And secondly, they allowed national rivalries to dominate, so that they failed to work together and cooperate really throughout the Second Crusade. Thirdly, they made key mistakes at Acre, when they decided on the attack on Damascus, which was clearly a poor decision, given the background that Damascus had been so friendly towards the Franks for many decades. And then there was the decision at Damascus itself to move the army from its well-watered spot to one far less defensible, so that when the attack eventually came from Nur ad-Din, the Crusaders decided to go home. So clearly, poor leadership played a key part in the defeat of the Second Crusade. Thirdly was the issue of Muslim unity. First of all, Zengi and then his son Nur ad-Din united northern Syria. Nur ad-Din had a powerful army and considerable resources behind him. He had begun the idea of jihad. Muslims in the region were now motivated, which is certainly not the case during the First Crusade and the Crusader states, as we have seen. And in both of these instances, they depended heavily on Muslim disunity. So we see in the Middle East on the Second Crusade, the Crusader army failed to engage with the much more powerful united Muslims under Nur ad-Din. We see it at Antioch, where Louis decided against a head-on attack against Nur ad-Din, and we see it at Damascus, where, as we know, the Crusaders decided Nur ad-Din was simply too big and too powerful, so retreated home. So, there we have it. In conclusion, what can we say? Why did the Second Crusade fail? Well, the short answer is because of our three main factors. And which of these is the most important, we will consider later in the topic.